भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने।
नमो विष्णुपदाय
कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नामिने।
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे।
नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी
गौरवाणी
गौरवाणी
प्रचारिणे
प्रचारिणे
निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी
शून्यवादी
पाश्चात्य
पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे।
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद।
जय
जय
श्री
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद
श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि
श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद।
वृंदा।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे
हरे
कृष्णा
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण
कृष्ण कृष्ण
कृष्ण
हरे
हरे
हरे,
हरे
हरे राम हरे राम राम
राम
राम
राम
हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्णा
कृष्ण
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 हरे
हरे
हरे,
हरे हरे
हरे
राम
राम
हरे
हरे राम
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 राम हरे
हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम
हरे राम
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 राम हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे
हरे कृष्ण
कृष्ण कृष्ण
कृष्ण
कृष्ण
कृष्ण
हरे
हरे हरे
हरे,
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे हरे।
जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा, प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा
जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा जय प्रभु।
हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्री
जय
प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय।
कृष्ण। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Pri Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shavasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Okay, so should we start with questions?
Yes, Prabhuji, you can start with the questions.
Okay.
1 minute, I'm just pasting those.
Prabhuji, before that, I would like to ask one request regarding this Asat Sangha that we were discussing upon. This currently this disease is going on, and many times devotees also get so much involved in news, and we have to get to know about current happening. At the same time, where to draw a line, how much news to hear about, talk about. That also becomes another Shravanam Kirtanam, actually.
My understanding and practical suggestion would be see the headlines without getting into too many details. I mean, sometimes even I do that just to know what's happening. So, but then it's not, spending 5-10 minutes just to know what's happening. That's okay. But then not that we are spending a few hours just reading all the details of how many people are dying here and how many people are dying there and this and that. One can just know some detail, some headlines. That's it.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I've posted the questions, Prabhuji.
It is mentioned that construct costly temples, but there's so many costly. Okay, so towards the end, I was clarifying the point there, which Srila Prabhupada mentions, and which Srila Prabhupada clarifies in many other places also, that one should be very clear as to what's the purpose of the temple. So in that regard, Srila Prabhupada's instructions, which we read in his purports, lectures, letters, etc. One thing Srila Prabhupada did say is that our focus need not be on temple construction, because that's not the Yuga Dharma. The Yuga Dharma is chanting the holy names, and that should be the main focus. And so we find that Srila Prabhupada also, when he started the movement, initially in many places, there were just photos of Panchatattva. Gaunitai, So Panchatattva photos actually. That was what was just there initially. And Srila Prabhupada also in his letters, he mentions that if there are not sufficient pujaris and full-time pujaris to focus exclusively on deity worship, just keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Just have photos and preach. So personally, I very much appreciate the idea at your center. So just have photos and focus on preaching, and I think so. It has been quite successful. The preaching is going on nicely, and there's not so much of endeavor and expenditure on deity worship. So that was what Prabhupada wanted to focus on actually. And as Prabhupada explains here, but if there are people to give money and who would like to contribute in that way and serve the Lord in that way, and Prabhupada is giving the example of Rupa Goswami and Mansingh, so then it's fine. Or if, so therefore, that means if the congregation especially feels that we need a place and we need deities and we are ready to contribute and or help in the contribution collection, so then it's fine. That's fine. So and that's one aspect as far as the construction is concerned. Now the second aspect, which Srila Prabhupada again is emphasizing here, is after the temple is built, then what? Not that now, okay, now we have a nice temple and so we just relax. No. But then the purpose of the temple is to preach. That's the main focus. So those who are residents of the temple and those who are congregation devotees coming to the temple. So it's not that just everything is, all that is being done after the temple is built is temple maintenance and then just sit in the temple and take care of oneself. No, that was not the goal. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada both here and also in his Bhagavatam purports and in his lectures, Srila Prabhupada has said that our temples are not free hotels where people are just eating and sleeping. So then the main purpose is to preach. So if we have a nice, beautiful temple, definitely it attracts many people. And then when people come, then devotees should preach to them. So the main purpose of having the temple is to preach. So therefore, we find that Srila Prabhupada, whenever it was possible and when the money was there, when the facilities were there, then Srila Prabhupada did build big temples. But then also Srila Prabhupada is given clear instructions how when the temples are built, deities are installed, then it is only after the minimum required facilities, pujaris, they're all available, then yes, then you can go ahead. So these are some few points about constructing temples. Is it all right? So anyways, before we proceed further, so on this topic of constructing costly temples, if anyone else has any question, then we could take it right now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, just wanted to discuss another aspect related to this temple construction.
Mm.
So in one of the lectures, Prabhupada says that if you want to build a skyscraper, better build it for Krishna.
Correct.
So the Ritviks, they have got inspired by this one single statement.
Ouch.
And in the land of Vrindavan, they are trying to build a skyscraper.
Mm.
In your opinion, will that please Srila Prabhupada?
Now, whether the building will please Srila Prabhupada or not is not the main question. what else they're doing, is that pleasing to Srila Prabhupada? That's the question. So if the foundational principle on which the whole organization is based, that itself is wrong, then whether they build a skyscraper or they build whatever, how is it going to be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada when the foundational principle of cooperation, of not blaspheming Vaishnavas, and following his instructions. So if the basic foundation is wrong, then the building, what's the glory of having a building? As skyscraper, if you say skyscraper, now how many skyscrapers are there in Bangalore? And how many skyscrapers are there in the world? So what's the big glory of having a skyscraper? So the materialists are building skyscrapers, and in the name of spirituality, somebody can build a skyscraper. What's the big deal? It's not about the building that's important. It's what's going in the building that's important. As we have been discussing even in our Bhagavad Gita classes, it's not the activity per se that is important. The activities are similar. What materialists are doing and what devotees are doing. From an external viewpoint, the activities are same. They're building buildings, and they're also cooking, making garlands, and going to the market, so many things. From an external viewpoint, it will appear as if the devotees and the materialists are doing the same activities. What makes the essential difference? The only difference is the consciousness. So when the basic foundational principle that itself is wrong, then what value is there to the skyscraper? Does it help?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So other than the skyscraper, they are also trying to take over, renovate the Radha Damodar, the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami, in the name that Srila Prabhupada eternally resides there. So that is not a skyscraper. They are just trying to renovate everything, build a Panchatattva there. Is that authorized?
Well, see, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's a good service. If they're doing that, that's a good service, and it's all fine. But then, how much benefit they will get will depend on the consciousness with which they're doing it. So, when there is a fundamental flaw in the philosophy, then okay, they will get some sukruti, some bhakti unmukhi sukruti will be there. But how much real spiritual progress they'll make is a question.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, in this regard, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sometimes he says that somebody who serves me, but he offends Advaita Acharya, his service appears to be like piercing of needles in my body.
Exactly. That's true. So that's what I was saying, that there's a fundamental flaw. When there's a fundamental flaw, so everything else that is done doesn't have much value. At most, that's what? At most, some bhakti unmukhi sukruti, that's all. There won't be much to it. Because, yes, as you rightly pointed out, Mahaprabhu says that in many places. Many places he says that if one is, one may do so many things, but if one is offending, blaspheming Vaishnavas, as we will be studying now in the next chapter. But then, yes, it's like Mahaprabhu had to, at some places, yes, he says that it's like hammering me on the head or things like that. So basically, the Lord is not pleased.
So,
Okay.
Even Prabhuji, Lord Krishna mentions that more than worshipping him, if we are respecting the devotees, then the Lord.
Yes. Okay. So yes. That point will come. We will be discussing that. Now let's stick to the point that we are discussing right here. So okay, that was about constructing temples. Let's go to the next. It's written in the book out of 605 items are important. Living in Mathura. Okay, fine. Living in Mathura, we're going to discuss later. The 5 most important items. That's a different topic we're going to discuss. Okay, why should one try not to read too many books? Okay, fine. So now, okay, so this topic also, we didn't get in too many details yesterday. So maybe I can speak a few things on that. So you see here, Srila Prabhupada writes, nor should one be enthusiastic about reading various types of books, save and except the ones which lead to the advancement of devotional service. And then he says, practically, if one very carefully, see the precision with which Srila Prabhupada writes everything. He didn't say if one reads, but he added that clause there, very carefully. If one very carefully reads Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and this nectar of devotion, that will give him sufficient knowledge to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. One need not take the trouble of reading other books. I don't think so there can be something more clear than this. And then later on, he says that similarly, a bona fide spiritual master has no business reading many books simply to show his proficiency or to get popularity by lecturing in different places. So that also gives a very clear indication of what's the mood and what's the purpose of reading. So if one very carefully, and as Prabhupada says, if one has to read very carefully all these books, so basically the focus is on Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, CC. Okay, that time CC was not there, so Prabhupada writes teachings of Lord Chaitanya, but CC and nectar of devotion. Now, Bhagavatam and CC, they are two literatures, but they're not two books. So the literatures go into volumes of books. Now, to very carefully, scrutinizingly read Bhagavatam and CC, how much time does it take? Prabhupada himself says one lifetime is not sufficient. In one lecture, actually, Prabhupada goes into a calculation of how if we cover one verse per day, how many years it'll take. I don't remember that. But in any case, Prabhupada does say one lifetime is not sufficient. To very carefully, if one wants to read it like a novel or something like that, just glance through the whole thing, then yes, then one can finish off in a few days. But as Prabhupada writes here, very carefully, then it's going to take a lot of time. And then when one reads very carefully, the result will be that will give him sufficient knowledge to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. So if one doesn't read very carefully, then yes, then no sufficient knowledge. Then when one feels that there's no sufficient knowledge, then one has to read some other books. But if one reads these books carefully, then there'll be sufficient knowledge and realization. And then if one reads carefully, everything is based on the quality of the reading and the consciousness behind it. So when the quality of reading is there, the consciousness is there, then, as Prabhupada explains in his purports, then every time one reads, the reading matter will be ever fresh. I think so. We did discuss this point in our Bhagavad Gita classes. So when the quality of reading is there, then every time one reads, it will not be hackneyed and boring, but it will be ever fresh. Because Krishna is never hackneyed. Krishna is ever fresh. And so every time Krishna will give newer and newer realizations, and the subject matter will never appear to be boring. And then one will never feel the need to read other books. But if one is reading casually and without the proper consciousness, just for the sake of reading something, then yes, then the problem comes. And I think so in our classes before, we have given that example of Gaur Govind Maharaj, that if one is simply on the superficial part of the ocean, one will only get fish. It's only when one dives deep, then one will find the precious rubies and jewels of precious realizations. So everything is based on what's the quality of the reading and what's the consciousness of the reading. So here, Prabhupada is making that point clear. Just see the precision of Srila Prabhupada. He wrote so less, but yet, just within these 2-3 sentences, Prabhupada has encapsulated the entire essence of why to read, how to read, what to read. Everything he has told. Now, this is called eloquence. So we can see. So if one very carefully reads, one will understand the entire science of Krishna consciousness, sufficient knowledge, and one need not take the trouble of reading other books. Of course, we already discussed the point in our previous discussions that yes, other books can be used as reference books, but our essential focus should always be on Srila Prabhupada's books, and they will give us sufficient knowledge to achieve the highest goal of human life. And so, if we don't, now many people want to read other books. One of the main reasons is, could be, to show his proficiency or get popularity. Then people want to show that, yes, I know something more than everyone else. And then, so therefore I have to find something here, something there to impress people. Otherwise, there's enough in Srila Prabhupada's books and his lectures. And I think so, I did mention in our previous discussions that even if one wants to add humor in the lectures, there is enough in our Acharya's writings. So many stories, so many lectures, so many analogies and so many things. Everything is there. So there's hardly any need. When there's not sufficient time to read and hear what Srila Prabhupada is given, then what's the need for others? Then it's just curiosity, and what is mental titillation or whatever. So of course, especially of course, if they're books about Srila Prabhupada, which quite a few devotees have written pastimes about Srila Prabhupada, and that's as good as, in fact, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam which says that descriptions about the Lord and his pure devotees, they're exactly the same, no different. So if one is reading about Srila Prabhupada, then that's fine. But, simply, especially talking about books from other sampradayas or books which are written by mundane authors and all that stuff, surely not. Then again, the same problem as we were discussing, asatsang. And we have actually seen cases. We've actually seen cases where devotees who read too many of these mundane books written by mundane authors, who obviously may have more literary proficiency in terms of way of writing and things like that. And then our Acharya's books appear to be too simple, and then they lose respect for Srila Prabhupada. And we have seen these things happen. And then we know what's the result. Yes, so that's our understanding on reading too many books. Is it okay?
Prabhuji, may I
Yes,
ask?
Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
All right,
May I ask one more relevant question there, Prabhu?
go ahead.
So, Prabhuji, in regards to our regular jobs, say for example, we have to read sometimes management books, or because to be practically associated with day-to-day affairs, but internally we know that that's again a very mundane book, and we want to still read Srila Prabhupada books and continue there. But is it so? There is a bit of a puzzle there in the mind that directly you cannot quote Bhagavad Gita and all in the management side of it practically with the office and all, but and then you have to read those, and those books also are actually based one way or the other on Bhagavad Gita only, if you see deep there. So how to handle that? Heart says that don't read, but actually practically
What's the purpose of reading those books?
so that I mean the folks who are not into Krishna consciousness, they won't understand the language of Bhagavad Gita. So using that book, you can correlate with them and tell them exactly, I mean, what's the right way to do, especially in management side of it.
Okay, so fine. So that means you're talking about using that for preaching. So, but then again, and the word of caution is within limits. So, okay, so one wants to a little bit know their language and things like that. So a little bit here and there, okay. A little bit here and there, okay. But not that we are spending most of the time reading those books and then we hardly read Srila Prabhupada's books. Then we will get into the zone of asatsang. So yes, a little bit here and there is fine. It's not for preaching. It's not required. Now, do you think Srila Prabhupada read all these books? Now you may of course say that, oh, he's a great acharya, this that, but still, we find there are so many devotees who preach, just based on Srila Prabhupada's books, and so many people get attracted. So, but in any case, if one feels that that's a little helpful, a little bit here and there is fine. But then, in terms of proportion, then the real, because one thing is we should have faith. We should have faith that that preaching takes place by Krishna's mercy. The whole problem is we think that by my abilities, I will be able to transform somebody's heart. How is that possible? What is our ability to transform somebody's consciousness? We are having tough time trying to change our own consciousness. What can we do to others? So Prabhupada makes this point clear, that ultimately, the ultimate preaching is done by the Paramatma within the heart. So therefore, our main purpose of preaching, as Srila Prabhupada very much emphasizes, is because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the instruction to preach. That's why we are preaching. So we are preaching to please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Acharyas. That means we preach according to what they have given. So, of course, the principle of time, place, circumstances is there. And so therefore, we could use something which may be relevant in the context. But again, that's not the goal. That's not the ultimate basis. We have to have faith that what our acharyas are given has the potency and the purity by which Krishna is pleased, and then Krishna changes somebody's heart. So little bit here and there is fine, but not beyond that for the purpose of preaching. Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on that subject matter of not reading too many books?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So some devotees, in order to be updated in their jobs with their respective domain knowledge, they need to read a lot.
Okay, I mean that's for the job, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's for profession job. That's a different story.
Okay.
Anything else?
Prabhuji, regarding reading books, I see there is another question by Vikas Khanna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you can ask the question. He has written it there, but
Okay, let's see. Where is it? Okay, some
Last
devotees. Okay, I got it. Some devotees advocate reading books of previous acharyas, and as there are many, but it will take long time, and it will not be practical, especially for grihasthas, to invest time in reading these other books. Now we also already answered that, isn't it? All other books, including previous acharyas' books, as reference books. If one doesn't have time, just stick to Prabhupada books. That's it. There's no need, as Prabhupada is saying here very clearly. It'll give him sufficient knowledge to understand the science of Krishna. So, what Prabhupada has given us, as Prabhupada was, you may have seen the video, as Prabhupada gives his commentaries, he's referring to all the previous acharyas' commentaries. And then he's giving. So it is the essence of all the previous acharyas' commentaries. And if you see, sometimes we show previous acharyas' commentaries, and you'll see how when we were discussing Bhagavad Gita, we showed some previous acharyas' commentaries. But then you see how Prabhupada's commentaries are exactly in line with the previous acharyas' commentaries. But Srila Prabhupada has explained things in a much more simpler way for the modern, westernized audience to understand, especially the English language. Otherwise, the essence of what all the previous acharyas have given is there in Srila Prabhupada's books. And therefore, you see Prabhupada so confidently writes here, that will give him sufficient knowledge. There's no need to take trouble to read other books. So even if one has time, one should stick to Prabhupada books. Not that I have a lot of time, so I keep reading so many other things and simply get confused. There are many people who get confused by reading too many books. So therefore, yes, and if there's no time, then forget it. Then just stick to Prabhupada books. That's it. All right.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Veni Madhav here.
Okay, yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, generally, when we hear Prabhupada philosophy and how to refute the Mayavadi and all this, generally we are very happy to, feel within the heart that Prabhupada is, very perfectly refuted that. But sometimes we feel that we want to see how these Mayavadi people preaches. Just to check sometime. It's not a regular thing. But sometimes we meant to see those videos, how they are preaching, kind of thing. Like that time, we feel more kind of happy that okay, Prabhupada this point told. Just to identify sometime is how this Prabhu, just some.
What's the purpose?
It can say that one kind of sense gratification. Because we want to see the practical way, whatever Prabhupada, kind of testing also, and mainly sense gratification.
No, see, one should be careful. Yes. As we were discussing, Mayavad Bhashya Shunle Hoy Sarvanash.
Yes, Guruji. That's right.
So, I was saying in a previous class, I think, right? That yes, Prabhupada has quoted Bhaktivinoda Thakur that even if a Mahabhagavat,
yes,
not ordinary, Mahabhagavat listens to Mayavad, he will fall down. Prabhupada says he will fall down, not maybe or something like that.
Krishna.
So therefore, there's no need to enter into dangerous territory.
Okay.
So Prabhupada has given enough Mayavad in his books. And if you just read Prabhupada books, anyways, first of all, it's a useless waste of time trying to go and defeat Pakka Mayavadis. Okay. So preaching to Pakka Mayavadis is useless. As we know, the four qualities of the Madhyamadhikari, he doesn't preach to those who are envious. He ignores them. So the Mayavadis are envious of the Lord. So preaching to Pakka Mayavadis is useless waste of time. We are not on the level of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who preached to Prakashananda Saraswati. We are not on that level. So as far as we are concerned, and that's the quality of the Madhyamadikari preacher, and that is he preaches to those who are innocent.
Okay.
So therefore, if somebody is actually a Mayavadi, then there's no point. A Pakka Mayavadi, of course, Pakka Mayavadis are also very rare these days. But then, in any case, there's no point in trying to preach to them. So what's the need of trying to find out how they are preaching? And they will preach, they will speak wonderfully. They will speak wonderfully, but what's the use of all that speaking? It's useless. Frogs croaking, that's all. So what's the point in wasting our time seeing that? And whatever, if somebody argues some Mayavad with us, we have enough. We have enough within Prabhupada's books to refute that. So there's absolutely no need to waste time and enter this dangerous territory of seeing how the Mayavadis are preaching. Is that okay, Venimada Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Giving initiation, Brahmin initiation, or sannyas to Westerners. Is a principle according to Hari Bhakti Vilas. Yes, the principle is accepting initiation. That is a principle. Clarify the question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So yesterday it was told when we were discussing the details which the Prabhupada has adjusted. So one of the points came that Prabhupada initiated Westerners and gave sannyas to Westerners. So my thought process is that that is not a detail which Prabhupada adjusted. That is a principle.
Yes, that's not a detail. I mean, I think so. We were talking about Brahminization to ladies, right?
No, this sannyas to Westerners also had come.
Sannyas to Westerners had come. Anyway,
yeah.
Of course, it's unique in history. It's unique in history, but it's perfectly authorized. That's what we discussed in the 5th chapter, isn't it? The purity of devotional service, that anyone from any part of the world can become a Vaishnava on the basis of Hari Bhakti Vilas and that example of bell metal. So yes, so that's perfectly Shastri. There's no adjustment there. It's a perfect thing.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Thank you. But it's unique. That's what we can say. It never happened before. Discipleship, this can be misleading in terms of discipleship. Oh, we already discussed that. Guru is not God. Guru is representative God. We already had a whole discussion on that. I don't know. Ananshesha is not Jupiter, so many conversations. Now, of course, we could. Okay, Ramanuja is basically, yes, he's Lakshman, or you could say Anantashesh. So coming as the Acharya. But then he is accepting a human like body, and so it's not we cannot consider him exactly as God, because God is always God. Then when God actually comes, then we find right from the beginning, then we find superhuman activities. Birth is also not ordinary. So therefore, in the case of an Acharya like Ramanacharya, then we understand that yes, he's getting the potency. He's getting the potency from Ananshesh or Lakshman, but then he has accepted a human form. And so therefore, we cannot consider him exactly as God, but empowered by God. So just like, something like Shakti-avesh. But then still there's a human body, and so that's my understanding. Is that okay?
Okay, bro.
Should I accept everything my guru accepts in terms of practical things? This is a vague question. Things should be more specific. I can't answer this.
Yes, I mean, Prabhu, like, do I need to subscribe to the every concept that the spiritual master or the GBC holds?
So yes, so yes, because they are authorities, isn't it? So we have to accept. So because if we accept Srila Prabhupada as the founder Acharya, then Srila Prabhupada has said that the GBC is his representative. Right.
I mean to say that the difference in opinion.
Oh, well, differences in opinion could be there, but then ultimately we follow the GBC.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, bro. Sure.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Oh. Is it wrong for devotees to recite or refer? What's this one? Why one needs to recite this? Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. This is Mayavad, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the reason, Prabhu, I asked, because generally, in Bhakti Riksha, vividly people know this, generally it's used in most of other paramparas and also. That's the reason I want clarity whether it's Mayavadi or, because somebody was saying it is from the Skanda Puran. So there are different
and see, did Prabhupada tell us to recite this?
No.
No, then forget it. Just forget it. And I personally don't know much about it, but it appears to be Mayavad. At least it appears. How can the Guru be Vishnu? Huh? You call the Guru Vishnu, it's Mayavad. Right. So there's no basis for this.
Yeah, this is the same understanding. I'm also having the same understanding, but because the question.
So just forget it. Why should we use something which our acharyas have not used?
Okay, Prabhuji.
Why followers of Buddha are not considered as devotees? You read that first. What Prabhupada has explained, you read that. Prabhupada has explained in detail about the Buddhists. You read that and then we can discuss. Okay, this we already answered. How to refute Ritvik philosophy, that should be discussed in the disciples course.
Yes, but we have a detailed discussion on that.
Yes, so right. If you ever get money, print my books. How do we weigh that against construction? Yeah, so we already discussed the point about constructing temples. So if the money is there, if people are ready to give, then that's fine. Then one can construct the temples. And then as far as printing proper books is concerned, then we already have the BBT which is doing that. So I don't see any problem with that. If we complete reading the 4 essentials to truth. Complete reading. So therefore Prabhupada has written here, carefully, very carefully reads. So if one has to carefully read, then it's not so easy to complete. And as we already mentioned the point, every time one reads, one will get newer and newer realizations. And so there's no question of saying, I have completed reading. It is like saying, I have completely understood Krishna. Can one at any point of time say that I have completely understood Krishna? Because Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam are non-different from Krishna. So how can one say I have completed reading? That completed reading is superficial. Therefore, Prabhupada has made that point clear. Carefully. So if one carefully reads, then one lifetime will not be sufficient. How to cultivate the moods? Yes, so therefore we continue reading. If we continue reading, then we will, and in the right mood for the right purpose, then we will have the right moods.
Oh, the question seems to be a little different, Prabhu. It says that after reading several times, they feel that it is not enough, and they are reading some other books, which is amazing.
Same books is written, and they need to read same books more, which is amazing.
Same.
How to cultivate this.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
If one takes many lifetimes to become fixed up in devotional service, then does one accept different? Krishna will make arrangements. As Prabhupada said, by the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, one gets Krishna. So Krishna will make arrangements for that spiritual master. So the manifestation, because the Guru is the external manifestation of the Chaitya Guru. So that means the external manifestation of Krishna within the heart. So Krishna makes that ultimate arrangement to have a Guru in different lifetimes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. But
yes.
Will that be different?
What was that?
If one has to accept a different spiritual master, I mean, every lifetime, is he going to be different than the previous one in the previous lifetime?
So the Guru in the previous lifetime, how can we expect that the same Guru will come in exactly the same? He may go back to the spiritual world and he may be serving Krishna in the spiritual world. So why should he come again back to the material world unless Krishna sends him? So the point is we cannot figure out all these things. So therefore, the simple understanding is that Krishna makes arrangements. Okay. So ultimately, all gurus are manifestations of Krishna because, as we already said, why they're Sakshat Hari? Because they're repeating the message of Hari. So therefore, they're all manifestations of Krishna. And Krishna makes arrangements. So it could be same guru, different guru. We don't know. We have no way to find out. But one thing is sure, that Krishna takes care and he will make arrangements.
Prabhuji, one point also we hear is that if one is initiated by the spiritual master and till we are not getting out of cycle of birth, and that the spiritual master keeps coming back, and so we have to make sure that we follow.
So my question is, so if the spiritual master goes back to the spiritual world, so should he come to the material world every time just because one of his disciples is still there in the material world?
No, Prabhuji.
So how can we expect that? So of course, if Krishna sends him, that's fine. That's a different story. But then taking a situation where, okay, one disciple is still remaining, maybe a hypothetical situation, but still, if one disciple is still remaining, so then and the disciple is least serious in his practice of devotional service, and he's going to take who knows 100 lifetimes or 1,000 lifetimes, so who knows, he's not serious. So then the guru needs to come in all these lifetimes. Does it sound logical?
No, Prabhuji.
Yes. So it's not like that. So therefore, Krishna makes arrangements. That's the understanding. The ultimate guru is Chaitya Guru. The Chaitya Guru is the ultimate guru. That's Krishna. And the external manifestation is the gurus, living gurus. They're all manifestations of that Chaitya Guru. And so the Chaitya Guru makes arrangements for the jiva to find some bona fide guru who can guide him in every life. Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, when we say Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Sai.
I knew somebody would ask this. but again, you think about the point. So therefore we clarified yesterday what is the meaning of Sakshat Hari. What is the meaning of Sakshat Hari? Huh?
Because he's the representative.
Yes, he's representative. So what he's doing?
Repeating the message of Hari as it is.
Repeating the message. That is the Chakshudan. So see, the whole problem comes because we think everything on such a gross platform. That's the whole problem. When we see things from very gross perspective, then the problem comes. So Chakshudan means what? The eyes of knowledge, isn't it? So it's not that it's going to be exactly the same person who is going to come. No, the person could be anyone. The person could be anyone, but the important point is he's going to give the eyes of knowledge. That's the important thing. The manifestation, the external manifestation in terms of the body could be anyone. But the important task or function remains the same, whoever it may be, and that is to give the transcendental knowledge. So that's the arrangement Krishna makes in every life, to have someone who is going to give that knowledge to the serious soul who wants to make progress. Not that the guru has to keep coming in every life. No, that's not what Shastra is saying, nor is it even logical.
So when the disciple says, my respectful obeisances to my eternal spiritual master, he is basically referring to the Guru Tattva or the personality.
Yes, so therefore it's the Guru Tattva, and ultimately we could say the Chaitya Guru who is giving all those, making all those arrangements, and who is the source of all spiritual knowledge. And so therefore, it's not that there's just one person in terms of one soul who is the only one to give us the spiritual knowledge. The person could be anyone, but then Krishna gives that service to different people of this world or different acharyas of this world to help the conditioned souls. So that's the understanding, not that we think that the same jiva who acted as guru in the previous life should come in every life. No.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
I think Prabhuji have explained enough, but still I had one doubt. Just could you elaborate on this, whether we have to see this also in the same light? So in the ISKCON Disciple course, we saw that Srila Prabhupada had written a letter to Jayapataka Swami Maharaj in 1969, where he said that you have asked if it is true that the spiritual master remains in the material universe until all of his disciples are transferred to the spiritual sky. The answer is yes, this is the rule. But then after that, Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain, but having this mentality that I can keep doing anything and my spiritual master will be there to save me. So this is an offense to the spiritual master. If someone is doing like this, he should not expect the assistance of spiritual master life after life at all. Prabhuji, so this we have to see in light of what you are saying, right? That ultimately, even the same personality might not be there, but the Lord will take care too.
Yes, exactly. It has to be in that light. So when we talk about the spiritual master, now first of all, one should understand that the spiritual master could also refer to the Chaitya Guru. The Chaitya Guru is also a spiritual master, who is definitely eternal. So the Chaitya Guru, can we call him a spiritual master or no?
Yes, we can call.
Yes. So, and he's definitely eternal. And he definitely comes life after life with the jiva.
Right. Yes.
And as Prabhupada in so many of his purpose explains, that yes, the initiating spiritual master or the Shiksha gurus, they're all external manifestations. This is the specific language Prabhupada uses. They're external manifestations of the same Chaitya Guru. So the Chaitya Guru is definitely eternal. And yes, and then he makes arrangements for the knowledge to be given via different living gurus. Is this point clear?
Prabhu, in this regard, I have one understanding that we will also be eternally indebted to that particular soul who saved us in any of the particular lives. Even for that matter, anybody who helped us in Krishna consciousness. So, one is respecting them because they're representative of Chaitya Guru, and another is respecting them also, because they particularly came to save us.
Yes.
So that relationship is also eternal, no, Prabhuji?
Yes, we could always be grateful to the person, whoever that person is. We could always be grateful to that person because at least he in that particular life where we began our Krishna consciousness or we continued our Krishna consciousness or whatever it may be, but in that particular life he helped us. So definitely we can always be grateful to that person.
So in that way, that language of my eternal spiritual master always holds good, even in the case of the particular soul we are being grateful to.
Yes, from that context also we could consider, definitely, in that context also. But again, the point remains that if somebody is taking a few lifetimes to perfect his life, so then it doesn't mean that the same person will be there in every life.
So in the case of Chintamani, there is, my understanding was specifically if the spiritual master is very compassionate about one particular soul, he may come, or that's kind of an exception, kind of.
I mean, see, ultimately, for us to understand these things is very difficult. You know, what arrangement Krishna is going to make and all that. How can we figure out everything?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah, just one more
It
point.
seems you're going to spend today's class with questions, huh? Anyway, I don't mind because it's important to get these things clarified. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, spiritual master is eternally there in terms of not only Vapu, it's in the Vani. So those spiritual master is not present in front of us in Vapu. So his Vani is just like, we are reading now Nectar of Devotion, which is the Sri Goswami has given. So his instructions are eternally there to deliver the souls.
Correct. Yes, the Vani is eternally there. That's correct. So, yes, so even that understanding is correct. That yes, the Acharya's Vani is always there. That is there. That's also correct. But the point is that we should. I mean, that's sort of a little bit of you could say a gross understanding that the same guru, that means the same jiva who was guru in the previous life will come in the next life and so many lives to save the one disciple. That's not very true. So of course all these points are correct, that yes, we are grateful and the one is eternal. Yes, all these points are correct.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
I hope the subject matter is clear.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Go ahead.
Prabhu, somewhere in one of the discourses, I've heard that we may take 2 or 3 lifetimes. One lifetime when we are introduced and the purification begins, then it becomes more and further. And finally, one lifetime when we actually come only for Paropkar. So we may have started our stint with the, say, ISKCON, so that parampara is the same. We may have started our stint with ISKCON, that parampara is same. So now in this lifetime, again, Prabhupada has brought us in his shelter, and then we, maybe this lifetime or more, but he will keep us in his shelter.
Okay. So what's the question?
So that understanding, Prabhuji, whether it is like, it takes a few lifetimes if we have come under the bona fide spiritual master to...
Now, whether it's going to take 1 lifetime or 2 lifetimes or few lifetimes, who can say? Prabhupada said, finish the business in 1 life.
Yeah.
So that means it is possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in any case, who can give a guarantee on this? Only Krishna knows. So, so there's no point in discussing whether it's going to take 1 or 2 or 3 or how many lifetimes. That's not so relevant for us. What's more important is that we aspire for devotional service in every life, whether it's in the material world, in the spiritual world, or wherever. That's the mode of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Janmani Janmani Shware Bhavtat Bhakti Rai. That's our aspiration, and that should be our goal, that it really doesn't matter. But we get the opportunity to practice devotional service because that's our eternal constitutional position. And trying to figure out how many lives that is quite irrelevant. But our aspiration should be, as Srila Prabhupada said, our aspiration should be that we practice so seriously that we are able, that we become qualified to go to the spiritual world in 1 life. But exactly when that's going to take place is up to Krishna. Does it help?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you,
Prabhu. Okay. Okay, now in chapter 8, item 30, one should not fail to offer some praise in the presence of which master is that every time we get a person. I think so. It depends on the situation, but if one has the time and or if situation permits, then speaking a few words glorifying is good. That's always a good etiquette. That's always a good etiquette, because it said even if when one is praying to the Supreme Lord also, initially there should always be some glorification. That's the standard. We find in all the prayers in the Bhagavatam, we find that standard. Initially there's glorification, and then whatever they want to say. So with the spiritual master also, if possible, it's fine. Otherwise, even reciting the pranam mantra is also a form of glorification. So if there is no time, then yes, at least we glorify him by reciting the pranam.
Okay. Thank you.
Ramnachari question, can that argument be extended to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? No. We can't extend that argument to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because the Shastra says this very clearly. Krishna Vannam Tvisha Krishnam. So the Shastra says it very clearly that he is Krishna himself. So now personally, I don't know Shastric references about Ramnacharya. So that was my understanding, which I said. So personally, I don't know any Shastric reference about Ramacharya and his tattva and all those details. I personally don't. How should we understand when it is said one should not offer incense without offering some flowers? Where is this mentioned? One should not offer incense without offering some flowers.
Prabhu, chapter Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's there in chapter 8. So if I in offenses to be avoided, under the list of, there is a list of 32 offenses. That of serial number 8 and 7.
7 and 8, yes. One should not offer incense without offering some flower. Okay. Sometimes we do find devotees before beginning the arti, they first offer a flower and then begin the arti. So maybe referring to that. So yes, we could offer a flower before starting the worship and offering incense. And of course, useless flowers without any fragrance should not be offered. That's correct, because then we are offering to the Supreme Lord. Then our love and devotion to the Supreme Lord is manifested in the quality of our service. So if we have the facility to get nice flowers, then we should get the best flowers. If nothing is available, then that's a different question. But if they're available, then the best should be offered to Krishna. Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
So,
Okay,
Prabhuji,
fine.
Right now in current circumstances, getting flowers not possible.
I understand. So yes, so then do the needful, whatever is possible. Okay, so that's the end of questions.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, good. So these list of offenses, so most of them are seva aparads. Not all of them, in fact, are seva aparads. And okay, so you see in chapter number 8, this is page 71, the last paragraph. So it's mentioned in the Padma Puran, it is stated that even a person whose life is completely sinful will be completely protected by the Lord if he simply surrenders unto him. So it is accepted that one who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes free from all sinful reactions. And even when a person becomes an offender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he can still be delivered simply by taking shelter of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In other words, the chanting of Hare Krishna is beneficial for eradicating all sins. But if one becomes an offender to the holy names of the Lord, then he has no chance of being delivered. So, the seva aparads can be, the reactions to seva aparads can be sort of neutralized by chanting the holy names. But then, if one is continuing to perform seva aparads, that means one is negligent in one's service to the deities, to the Lord in any way. So then, as Prabhupada explains in a Bhagavatam purport, that I'm not recollecting the exact statement, but Prabhupada has written to the effect that if one continues to perform seva aparads, then he's not actually a devotee. He's not actually a devotee. That means a devotee should be careful to avoid the offenses in service. So not that one is just negligent and one continues to commit offenses while performing services. So occasionally, inadvertently, if some mistakes happen, then yes, then that can be neutralized by chanting the holy names. But then now that one continues to keep performing seva parats and be negligent in one's service, then obviously Krishna is going to be displeased. And sometimes the seva parats could also mean that one is neglecting the instructions of the spiritual master. So then it goes into the third nama parat. So then that's serious. So therefore, one should always be careful to understand that yes, one is serving the Lord, and so that means one has to be extremely careful in performing the services with great attention. That's the symptom of love. Symptom of love and devotion means what? That one is trying to do the service in the best possible way. Otherwise, where is the love and devotion if one is continuing to perform offenses? And as far as the nama parats are concerned, so most of us are, I'm sure, familiar with nama parats, and I'm sure many of you have attended many seminars on that. So we're not getting into details, but then nama parats, then each one of them has a specific way of atonement, which Bhaktivedanta Thakur describes in the Harinam Chintamani, which you can read. And of course, we understand that the nama parats are more serious, and so one should be extremely careful in avoiding the nama parats. And of course, as we say, the mother of all offenses is to be inattentive while chanting the holy names. And we have a great tendency for that. So that should be very carefully avoided. So therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has called that as pramad, madness. And so one is inattentive when chanting, so that's like madness. So therefore, one should try one's best to be very attentive while chanting the holy names, and do that as an exclusive activity when one is especially chanting 16 rounds. That chanting should be done as an exclusive activity, and not that one is doing 10 other things while chanting the holy names. That's a great offense. So it's Krishna. We are saying the name is non-different from Krishna. So if we are doing 10 other things, there's mobile in one hand and or so many other activities while chanting 16 rounds, it's not at all the standards. So then that leads to so many other offenses. All right, we'll go to the next chapter.
Prabhuji, one question I have.
What was that?
Yeah, Prabhuji, we should not worship deity in front of non-devotees, it's written. But
it's not clear. Please speak a little louder.
Prabhuji, it's written in the 8th chapter that we should not worship deity in front of the non-devotees. But
In
when
front,
we preach,
which one? Tell the number.
Number is here, page number 71, second paragraph. 71, page number, second paragraph.
What's it?
One should not worship the deity before a non-devotee, and one should not engage himself in the worship of Lord while seeing a non-devotee. But sometimes we in mid of non-devotee, we have to do our sadhana. We can't stop our sadhana.
This is not referring to sadhana. This is referring to deity worship.
Sadhana means deity worship, daily worship. If you have a small deity and some non-devotees has come, but still I have to do my daily.
This is referring to activities like bhoga offering and dressing the deities. So those activities we don't do in front of others, isn't it?
Okay, not daily puja and all. Not this is not referring.
Artis, everyone can see and should see the artis, but this is referring to worship, which means that like bhoga offering and dressing and bathing the deities.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, this another one controversial thing, that the worship of Ganapati, that also you can comment upon.
So here Prabhupada is writing in the Brahma Samhita, it says Ganpati worships the lotus feet of Lord Narasimhadev, and in that way has become auspicious for devotees and clearing out all impediments. So if Ganpati is getting the power from Lord Narsimhadev and we are worshipping Lord Narsimhadev, then what is the need to worship Ganpati?
Prabhupada here says, therefore all devotees should worship Ganapati.
Therefore, one should understand the mood. But before that, he has made one statement. So then we are worshipping Lord Narsimhadev. So therefore, maybe this is there as a Shastric injunction, and therefore Srila Prabhupada may be repeating it as a Shastric injunction. But again, where did Srila Prabhupada show in his own personal example? Did he show?
No. Basically,
in fact, there's one famous letter where one devotee has written to Srila Prabhupada whether he can worship Ganpati or some demigod, I'm not sure. I think so it was Ganpati. And Prabhupada says,
yes, Ganapati only.
Ganpati only. You know what was the reply Prabhupada gave?
If you can collect $1 million or something like that, then you can worship something like that.
Exactly. Prabhupada said, you pay me $1 million every month or something, and then you can worship. Because the mood of demigod worship is usually to get some money. So therefore, one should also see the example that the Acharya has set, and not simply cling on to some Shastric injunction, which may have been there because of. So therefore, one must see everything in the proper context. So yes, worshipping Ganpati is okay if one is not worshipping Lord Narsimhadev. Then in that mood, then it's fine. But then again, a worship of Devata or giving respect to Devata also must be in the proper perspective, that he is getting his power from the Supreme Lord. Then in that proper perspective, if one worships, then that may be okay. So therefore, the Shastric injunction may be there, but then again, one has to see the practical life of the Acharya, whether he has actually done it. So if the practical example is not there, then why cling on to this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So here, so basically, to drive away all impediments in the execution of devotional service, that is the context I think Prabhupada actually referred.
Yes.
So all impediments execution of devotional service, if at all, then demigod, so Ganapati worship. But if we, as you said, if we worship Lord Narsimhadev, it is not required.
Yes, so that's the end of the story. We are worshipping Lord Narsimhadev. That's what Srila Prabhupada taught us, and that's the end of the story. There's no point in having a further discussion. Is it okay?
Yes, Paul.
Okay, so then we go to the next chapter, chapter 9, further consideration of devotional principles. Okay, so the first principle here is blasphemy or sadhu ninda. So when we speak of sadhu ninda, that means blaspheming a sadhu or a devotee, then the first point to clarify is who is a sadhu? Who is a sadhu or who is a devotee? Okay, let's hear from some devotees. Who is a sadhu? What's the understanding?
Bhajate mam ananya bhag.
Yes, this is what Srila Prabhupada refers to very often in his lectures whenever he talks about who is a sadhu. Bhajate mam ananya bhag. That's right. So one who's fixed in worshipping the Supreme Lord. So then he is a sadhu. And other times Prabhupada also referred to the other verse of Lord Kapila talking about the qualities of the sadhu. Titikshva, Karunika, Surada Sarvadeina, Ajata Shatruva Shanta Sadhu Sadhu Bhushna. So he also referred to that. But yes, so Bhajate Imam Ananya Bhak. So in other words, so as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, The principal characteristic of the Swarup Lakshan of a sadhu is he is surrendered to Krishna and his name. So that's the Swarup Lakshan. And that is the Lakshan. The secondary characteristics are the other 25 qualities of a devotee. So we know the 26 qualities of Vaishnava. So the other 25 qualities, they are secondary. So if one has the principal qualification of surrender to Krishna, but he doesn't have all of the secondary qualifications to the full extent, he is still considered a devotee. As one continues chanting, the secondary qualifications eventually fully manifest. Okay, so when we talk of a sadhu or a devotee, then what's most important is that he is surrendered to Krishna. That means he's essentially following, he basically has the full conviction that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is worshipping Krishna. And to put in practical terms, within our society would mean that somebody is seriously chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regular principles and following all the other instructions of the spiritual master and the acharya, and one is serious in one's practice of devotional service. So that's the basic understanding. And then some of the secondary qualifications may not be there. Maybe secondary qualifications are like sense control and moderate in eating and speaking and things like that. So those may or may not be there immediately because of the previous conditionings. But if the primary qualification is there, then we consider him a sadhu. And of course, we did have quite a good discussion on this point when we were discussing Abhichit Sudurucharo. So if we criticize him, such a sadhu, bear bad feelings towards him or hear him criticized, we're involved in sadhu ninda. Of course, I think so in one of the previous discussions we had that, yes, feelings may not have immediate reactions, but then if we have feelings, then feelings will eventually be expressed in words and deeds. So even the feelings. So either if we criticize or hear him criticized, then we are involved in sadhu ninda. So blaspheming a devotee incurs the anger of Krishna because the devotee is very dear to Krishna. So many references we know about that. So therefore Krishna becomes upset. Okay, now let's read from Prabhupada's book. Somebody read from Prabhupada's book.
Advait Gaur Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So from slides?
No, from the book, Blasphemy.
So one should not tolerate blasphemy of the Lord or his devotees. In this connection, in the 10th canto, 74th chapter, verse 40 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukdev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, "My dear king, if a person, after hearing blasphemous propaganda against the Lord and his devotees, does not go away from that place, he becomes bereft of the effect of all pious activities." In one of Lord Chaitanya's Sikshashtaka verses, it is stated, "The devotee should be more tolerant than the tree and more submissive than the grass. He should offer all honor to others, but may not accept any honor for himself." In spite of Lord Chaitanya's being so humble and meek as a devotee, when he was informed about injuries inflicted on the body of Sri Nityananda, he immediately ran to the spot and wanted to kill the offenders, Jagai and Madhai. This behavior of Lord Chaitanya's is very significant. It shows that a Vaishnava may be very tolerant and meek, foregoing everything for his personal honor, but when it is the question of the honor of Krishna or his devotee, he will not tolerate any insult. There are 3 ways of dealing with such insults. If someone is heard blaspheming by words, one should be so expert that he can defeat the opposing party by argument. If he is unable to defeat the opposing party, then the next step is that he should not just stand there meekly, but should give up his life. The third process is followed if he is unable to execute the above mentioned 2 processes, and this is that he must leave the place and go away. If a devotee does not follow any of the above mentioned 3 processes, he falls down from his position of devotion.
Okay, fine. So there are 2 points here. One thing is when oneself is being blasphemed. So if oneself is being blasphemed, then yes, then as Mahaprabhu has taught us, Trinadapi Suniche. Then, and Tarorapi. So then one should tolerate. And then one should tolerate. Or at least try to tolerate. But then if one is seeing other devotees being blasphemed, ill-treated, then one has to follow one of these three. So one should defeat the opposing party by argument. If he's not able to do that, one should give up his life. And if he's unable to execute these above two procedures, must leave the place. Now the second one is not recommended because for a devotee to give up life is also offensive. Okay, so there's a quote from the Bhagavatam. Somebody read this.
Vijay Narasimha Prabhuji. Vijay Narasimha Prabhuji. Or Vikas Rana Prabhuji.
From this.
Yes, Vijay Narasimha Prabhuji. Go on,
Here,
please.
in countering Sadhu Ninda hearing. Set forth here in Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should
it's not
tolerate
clear.
at any cost the activities of a person.
A little louder, please.
Vilifies or blasphemes an authority. If one is a Brahmana, he should not give up his body because by doing so, he would be responsible for killing a Brahmana. Therefore, a Brahmana should leave the place or block his ears so that he will not hear the blasphemy. If one happens to be a Kshatriya, he has the power to punish any man. Therefore, a Kshatriya should at once cut out the tongue of the vilifier and kill him. But as far as the Vaishyas and Shudras are concerned, they should immediately give up their bodies.
Okay, so fine. So therefore, as far as Brahmanas are concerned, they should not give up their life. And so therefore, for them, then the only two options, and that is best is if one can oppose, defeat, then it's fine. Otherwise, block the ears and leave the place. So that's best for Brahmanas, for devotees. This is from a lecture of Giraj Maharaj. Somebody can read this.
Anand Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. From the screen, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
First, one must recognize one is being blasphemous. Raghunath Das Goswami gives an example of how one mistakes something bad for something good in discussing someone who's bathing in ass urine and thinking that he's cleansing himself. Sometimes we discuss the faults of a Vaishnava and we are thinking that actually this is a very good discussion and very purifying to analyze these faults for the sake of clarifying issues to push on the movement. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish the devotional creeper from the weeds. Kutinati is the weed of duplicitous behavior and or fault finding. Raghunath Das Goswami compares it to bathing in ass urine. Duplicitous behavior means that we are making a show of devotional service with the main purpose of not pleasing Krishna, but to get some honor or praise so people will respect us or think we are very pure. We find fault with others to make our position more by making others' position less.
Okay, so here he's pointing out the tendency of fault finding. So as he says here, we find fault with others to make our position more by making others' position less. So this is one of the main causes for blasphemy or ninda or fault finding, and that is envy. So there's envy towards somebody else. And then because of that envy, we want to make the other positions less so that our own position, it may go up. At least one imagines so. So therefore we find faults to somehow pull down the other person, make his position less. And then we think that automatically my position will go up, which may not take place. But envy is one of the root causes for blasphemy and fault finding. And one may have that weed, or one may have that anartha, but another anartha which covers up that is kutinati. That means duplicitous behavior. So one is finding faults because of envy, but then one tries to justify it. So that's called duplicitous behavior. So one knows one is unnecessarily finding faults and blaspheming, but then one justifies. Just like Daksha. Daksha, he was blaspheming Lord Shiva out of envy. But then before he began his blasphemy, then he was trying to justify it, saying that, oh, I just want to point out some qualities of Lord Shiva for the benefit of everyone in the assembly, something like that. So he was trying to justify what he was trying to do. So that's duplicitous behavior. So yes, so as he says here, duplicitous behavior means that we are making a show of devotional service, the main purpose of not pleasing Krishna, but to get some honor or praise, so people respect. So that's the meaning of duplicitous behavior. So we are presenting ourselves as being proper Vaishnavas, but then we have some wrong motivations. And so therefore, it becomes very difficult to distinguish the devotional creeper from the weeds. The weeds look very similar to the original devotional creeper. So therefore, as it says here, first of all, one must recognize that one is being blasphemous. That itself becomes difficult because the mind and the false ego acts through the mind and the intelligence. So one tends to justify, even though one is being blasphemous, but one tends to justify what one is doing. And sometimes this is the justification that's given, as is saying here, that this is a very good discussion, very purifying to analyze for the sake of the movement, for the sake of management. So of course, those who are having responsible positions, whether it be parents or managers and leaders, may sometimes find faults as a service, but then that's not called blasphemy. That's service to help the other person. But then of course, especially for managers and leaders, then one should always be careful and introspect why they're finding faults, whether it's as a service or whether it's being done out of envy. So one should be careful because the tendency of the mind is always to justify. So one should be careful that one is not being duplicitous, and one should recognize that one is being blasphemous. And so therefore, if one has a doubt, then one should take guidance from other Vaishnavas. And then if one is actually having envy and as a result one is blaspheming, then one should try to get rid of the anartha. So if one has already blasphemed, criticized unnecessarily, then what are the remedial measures? So to become free from sadhuninda, one should beg forgiveness from the devotee in such a way that he be pleased to forgive us by approaching with humility, glorifying him and serving him. Okay, so it's not just a superficial act of saying sorry and things like that, but then one should beg forgiveness in a way that the other devotee will be pleased to forgive. So that means we approach with humility and not only ask for forgiveness, but also at the same time glorify and serve him. And the second point is avoid the association of non-devotees and materialistic devotees. As we discussed yesterday, that when we associate with them, then we tend to lose respect for devotees, and as a consequence of that, one tends to blaspheme and offend. So therefore, one should avoid the association of non-devotees. Okay, fine. So that's about blasphemy. And a good example in that connection is, of course, the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Bhagavatam both have so many examples of blaspheming, of somebody who blasphemed devotees, and then what are the results. So, of course, we know that there's a big list, both in the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in all the examples, we see disastrous consequences because of the blasphemy. And one very striking example is that of Ramchandra Puri. So we know how Ramchandra Puri, he was offending the Vaishnavas. He used to invite them for prasad to his place, and then against their will, he would overfeed them. And then after overfeeding them, then he would say, just look at these Vaishnavas, they eat so much. And that's how he developed the offensive mentality, which eventually went on to offend the Supreme Lord himself. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, saw some ants and then eating too many sweets. And then ultimately we know that he offended his spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri, as he was passing from this world. And so we see that because of all these offenses, he became an impersonalist. So this is very rare. In fact, the only example we know of a Vaishnava as great as a disciple of Madhavendra Puri himself, exalted Vaishnava, but the result is he became an impersonalist. We hear of impersonalists becoming Vaishnavas, but the opposite is in the case of Ramchandra Puri. Of course, as far as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was concerned, then Mahaprabhu, he said that yes, he is the god brother of my spiritual master, so therefore he's trying to instruct me for my benefit, and so he reduced his eating. So that's how Mahaprabhu responded to the blasphemy, though all the other Vaishnavas were very angry. But Mahaprabhu showed that perfect example of Triladapi Suneche and Tarurapi. So he never even took offense. He just thought that yes, he's a senior Vaishnava, he's helping me, he's instructing me. But then, of course, the ultimate result was that he became an impersonalist and finally left the association. So therefore, there's so many examples, one should be careful. Okay, some other angas of bhakti that are being described here, and I think so most of them are usually covered in Vaishnava etiquette classes and all that, so we're not going through all of them. Tilak and tulsi beads, accepting flower garlands, dancing before the deity. So here, Prabhupada gives a nice example, dancing before the deity. Just as by clapping the hands, one can cause many birds to fly away. Similarly, the birds of all sinful activities, which are sitting on the body, can be made to fly away simply by dancing and clapping before the deity of Krishna. Okay. So you can see all these, so basically all these 64 angas of bhakti are being explained in these chapters, and we can see how Rupa Goswami has given so many Shastric references to demonstrate the importance of all these angas of bhakti. Okay, so here there's a reference from Dwarka Mahatmya. So therefore, so all these are not simply some sentimental activities. So clapping, dancing. So just like Prakashanand Saraswati was accusing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the devotees of just being sentimentalists, chanting and dancing on the streets. But you can see that all these angas of bhakti, they all have a great Shastric basis. And we find Rupa Goswami therefore quoting all these Shastric references to show that how all these angas of bhakti are not simply sentimental, but have a great scientific basis. So therefore we perform them. Bowing down in honor of the deity, standing up to receive the Lord, following the deity. Circumambulating the temple of Vishnu. So here is quoting from the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. A person who is circumambulating the deity of Vishnu can counteract the circumambulation of repeated birth and death in this material world. The conditioned soul is circumambulating through repeated births and deaths on account of his mental existence, and this can be counteracted by circumambulating the deity in the temple. Then Archana, that's deity worship. We'll be discussing this point again. Importance of deity worship. Rendering service to the Lord. This is more in reference to, yes, constructing beautiful temples and arranging for the worship. And so here Prabhupada writes, the conclusion that those who are rich men in society should construct beautiful temples and arrange for the worship of Vishnu so that people will be attracted to visit such temples and thereby be offered the opportunity of dancing before the Lord or chanting the holy name of the Lord or else of hearing the holy name of the Lord. In this way, everyone will be given the chance to elevate himself to the kingdom of gods. In other words, even a common man simply visiting such a temple will be able to attain the highest benedictions, not to mention the devotees or customers. Okay, so yes, so those who are rich people, then they can render service in this way by constructing temple. Then singing, so singing songs glorifying the Lord's, then Sankirtan, congregational chant. So of course, Kirtan means not only just the holy name, but when person loudly chants the glories of the Lord's activities, qualities, form, etc., his chanting is called Sankirtan. Sankirtan also refers to congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Then japa. So chanting a mantra or hymn softly and slowly is called japa. Okay. So japa should not be like kirtan. Sometimes we find that japa is like kirtan. No, japa is softly and slowly. So it's basically for oneself. That's japa. Chanting the same mantra loudly for being heard by all others is called kirtan. So the Mahamantra can be used for japa and kirtan. When japa is practiced, it is for personal benefit of the chanter. But when kirtan is performed, it's for the benefit of all others who may hear. Then the next one is submission. Okay, somebody read from the book, submission.
Aishwarya Mataji.
Hare Krishna. In the Skanda Purana, there is a statement about submission unto the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said there that those who are sober devotees can offer their submission to Krishna in the following 3 ways. One, very feelingly offering prayers. Danya Vodhika, humbly submitting oneself. Lalasamai, desiring some perfectional stage. This desiring some perfectional stage in spiritual life is not sense gratification. When one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understands his original position and wants to be reinstated in this position, either as a friend, servant, parent, or conjugal lover of Krishna. This is called Lalasamai, or very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. This Lalasmai stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called Sarupa Siddhi. When the living entity understands by perfect spiritual advancement and revelation his original relationship with the Lord in
okay, fine. Okay. So, Vijnapti, this is called submission. So, submission by offering prayers, basically. So, Rupa Goswami says that by making entry to the Vijnapti to the Lord with words. So, submission can be made, submission, surrender, can be with the body, mind. This is by words, by offering prayers, and the bolt on the door of liberation is released. So basically, it's 3 types of prayers. So Samprathanatmika, Dainya Bodhika, and Lal Samai. So an important point which Prabhupada is writing here in connection to Lal Samai. Lal Samai means desiring some perfectional stage. And so this point should be carefully understood here, which of course we will be discussing in Raganuga Bhakti also. But since Prabhupada is making the points, so I just want to draw everyone's attention to this point. And that is when one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understands his original position and wants to be reinstated in this position, either as friend, servant, parent, or conjugal lover of Krishna. This is called Lalsamaya, very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. But please note, this Lalsamaya stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called Swarup Siddhi, when the living entity understands by perfect spiritual advancement and revelation his original relationship with the Lord. So it's not something cheap. And so sometimes amongst devotees also, you find this discussion taking place that devotee can desire to either be a friend or a gopi or a gopa or a peacock in the spiritual world. As Prabhupada says, it's not sense gratification, but this is revealed when one is spiritually advanced. How advanced? Liberated platform. Liberated platform means what? Bhava platform, Bhava Prema. That is the stage when this revelation takes place, and then one desires. So it's not some cheap talk. Oh, I want to become peacock, I want to become gopi. So sometimes we find this type of useless talk. It's useless talk. So it's only on the liberated platform that one's constitutional position, one's swarupa in the spiritual world is revealed. When one is totally free from all anarthas, then it's revealed, and then one can desire for a specific spiritual perfection. So one should note this point. And okay, so now example of some prarthanatmika, that's expressing one's heartfelt desire for bhava, spontaneous devotional service. So it's desire for feelingly offering prayers to make spiritual progress. So then in that connection, the example is given for Samprathanatmika. Okay, so this is the example that's being given for Samprathanatmika. My Lord, I know that young girls have natural affection for young boys have natural affection for young girls. I'm praying at your lotus feet that my mind may become attracted unto you in the same spontaneous way. So this is the example of Samprathanatmika. So as Prabhupada explains, after quoting this example, Prabhupada says that this is a material example, but the devotee is praying that he may develop a similar spontaneous attachment for the Supreme Lord, free from any desire for profit and without any other cause. This natural attraction for the Lord is the perfectional stage of self-realization. So he's praying for that attraction, natural attraction towards the Lord. Okay, somebody can continue reading in the same Padma Puran.
Vikas Rana, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. In the same Padma Puran, there is a statement about submission in humbleness. It is stated there, my dear Lord, there is no sinful living entity who is more of a sinner than myself, nor is there a greater offender than myself. I am so greatly sinful and offensive that when I come to confess my sinful activities before you, I am ashamed. This is a natural position for a devotee. As far as conditioned soul is concerned, there is no wonder that he has some sinful activities in his past life. And this should be admitted and confessed before the Lord. As soon as this is done, the Lord excuses the sincere devotee. But that does not mean that one should take advantage of the Lord's causeless mercy and expect to be excused over and over again while he commits the same sinful activities. Such a mentality is only for shameless persons. Here it is clearly said, when I come to confess my sinful activities, I become ashamed. So if a person is not ashamed of his sinful activities and continues to commit the same sinful activities, with the knowledge that the Lord will excuse him, that is a most nonsensical proposition. Such an idea is not accepted in any part. Chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes washed clean of all sinful activities from his past life. But that does not mean that after being washed off, one should again begin sinful activities and expect to be washed again. These are nonsensical propositions and are not admitted in devotional service. Someone may think, for a whole week I may commit sinful activities, and for one day I will go to temple or church and admit my sinful activities, so that I can become washed off and again begin my sinning. This is the most nonsensical and offensive, and is not acceptable to the author of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Okay, so this is Dainya Bodhika, expressing one's Dainyata or one's fallen position. So just like we have praise of the Acharyas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Amar Jivan, Sutta Papirata, Naiko Punya Relation, so like that. So we have these prayers where a devotee expresses his fallen position. And as Prabhupada says, when one does that, then the Lord excuses the sincere devotee. So this is basically repentance for one's sinful activities. And as Prabhupada writes in the Ajamil section, just like Ajamil repented for all his sinful activities, then Prabhupada writes that the sinful reactions are burnt up in the fire of repentance. So the Lord is pleased by that repentance, and then he excuses the devotee, and the sinful reactions are burnt up. But then, as Prabhupada explains, it does not mean that one prays, one atones, and then continues the same sinful activities. Then that will be the seventh offense, committing sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. So that, as Prabhupada says, is for shameless persons. So one may repent and pray, but then one should avoid committing the same sinful activities again. Okay, so that's about Dainya Bodhika. Okay, and then, okay, continue. Example of what is not Dainya Bodhika. Okay, for a whole week I may commit sinful activities. Okay. Lalsamai. Okay, continue reading in the Narada Pancharatra.
Veni Mata Prabhuji.
1 minute. Yes, 1 minute. Yes. In the Narada Pancharatra, there is a statement of submission accompanied by the desire for perfection. The devotee says, "My dear Lord, when shall that day come when you will ask me to fan your body, and according to your pleasure, you will say, you just fan me in this way." The idea in this verse is that the devotee is desiring to personally fan the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means that he is desiring to become the personal associate of Supreme Lord. Of course, any devotee in any capacity, either as a servant, friend, or conjugal lover, always has direct association with the Lord. But according to his different individual taste, a person desires for just one of these relationships. Here, the devotee is desiring to become a servant of the Lord and desires to fan the Lord, as does his internal energy, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. He also wishes that the personality of Godhead will be pleased to give him a directions as to how to fan. This submission with a transcendental desire, or Lalsamayi Vignapti, is the highest perfectional stage of spiritual realization.
Okay, so it is the highest perfectional stage of spiritual realization. So it's a very high platform, as we already discussed, that is only on the stage of liberation, bhava, prema, when one understands one's constitutional position. So one cannot artificially imitate this stage and offer such prayers as even. Yes, so you see Jiva Goswami, he says that Samprathanatmaya belongs to someone without the appearance of bhava, whereas Lalsa or Laulyam belong to a person who has manifested bhava. So this Lalsamai prayers are for those who have manifested bhava. They're on the bhava stage. Okay, this is another example of Lalsamai, which Prabhupada gives in the next paragraph. My dear Lord, a lotus-eyed one. Okay, okay, continue reading till the end of that. In the same Narada Pancharatra, read from Prabhupada's book.
Veni Mata Prabhuji, you can continue.
Fast.
Veni Mata Prabhuji, I think you got disconnected. Okay, Venudhari Govind Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. In this same Narada Pancharatra, there is another expression of submission, wherein the devotee says, "My dear Lord, O lotus-eyed one, when will the day come when on the bank of the Yamuna I shall become just like a madman and continue to chant your holy name with incessant tears flow from my eyes?" This is another perfectional stage. Lord Chaitanya also desired that a moment will appear unto me as 12 years of time, and the whole world will appear to me as vacant on account of seeing you. My dear Lord, one should feelingly pray and become eager to render his particular type of service to the Lord. This is the teaching of all great devotees, especially Lord Chaitanya. In other words, one should learn how to cry for the Lord. One should learn the small technique, and he should be very eager and actually try to become engaged in some particular type of service. This is called laulya, and such tears are the price for the highest perfection. If one develops this laulya or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in a particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of God. Otherwise, there is no material calculation for the value of the ticket by which one can enter the kingdom of God. The only price for such entrance is this laulya lala samai, or desire and great eagerness.
Okay, so of course, we can cultivate this laulyam, we can cultivate this eagerness as much as possible according to our level. But then the ultimate laulyam comes on the stage of bhava, when one has a great eagerness, and then yes, that becomes the price to enter the kingdom of gods. So when one has reached the bhava stage, then yes, then he actually becomes qualified. Then he's already on the liberated platform. Oh, Krishna. Okay, fine. Okay, so the remaining points, Shravanam is next chapter. So the remaining angas of bhakti in this chapter are quite simple: reciting notable prayers and parting of prasadam, drinking chandamrit, smelling incense and flowers offered to the deity. The example of the four Kumaras is given. Touching the deity, of course, is only for those who are qualified, second initiated. And Prabhupada condemns Gandhiji, who said, yes, everyone is Harijan and everyone can touch the deity. No. Seeing the deity and observing Aarti and celebrations of the Lord. So these are all simple angas of bhakti. But the important point to note is that, yes, all these angas of bhakti have been introduced by Srila Prabhupada within ISKCON. And so just by being within ISKCON, one is actually taking part in so many of these angas of bhakti, which Rupa Goswami is giving. And all of them have Shastric references. You can see Rupa Goswami giving Shastric references for all these angas of bhakti. But then we are performing all of them. If we just visit the temple, so many of these angas of bhakti are being performed. So you can read, and the other angas of bhakti mentioned. If you have any doubts, we'll clarify tomorrow. Okay, and then we'll start chapter 10. Okay, so our time is up for today. So we'll stop. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, thank you all very much for continuation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Jai. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai.
Danda pranam.
Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you.